Good morning, America. Fire emergency. A wildfire in Nevada exploding in size in just hours, fueled by tinderbox conditions. 1,000 homes threatened, evacuations ordered.
If you can get out now.
The battle this morning to keep it contained.
Escalating trade war. Canada vowing to retaliate following President Trump's announcement of a 50% tariff on a number of Canadian imports.
We cannot accept what they've offered, and we will not give what they've asked.
The goods that could be going up.
Judges ruling a Texas teen's request for a new trial denied in a high-profile murder case. 19-year-old Karmelo Anthony sentenced to 35 years in prison, convicted of killing a rival student-athlete. Reaction overnight and where the case goes next.
Fire on board, a laptop bursting into flames aboard an American Airlines flight.
I think we have about 4 to 5 passengers that were burned by the laptop.
Firefighters and first responders coming on board as soon as the plane landed.
Vaccination 101, with kids heading back to school and falling vaccine rates among kindergartners. Key medical advice from Dr. Darian Sutton on measles, COVID, and flu shots.
And who's ready to race? A robot breaks the record set by the world's fastest human. But not every machine had a winning day. Plus the Grand Prix in D.C., the first of its kind race along the National Mall. Speedsters racing past some of Washington's most famous landmarks.
Live from ABC News headquarters in New York City, it's Sunday. Good morning, America.
And we do say good morning, America. Whit is off today. Glad to have Rhiannon in here with us. What do you think of that robot competition?
I think it looks fun, but I really think those images coming out of D.C. with the cars, that's
really
such a cool
special, really special. So we're going to have much more on all of that coming up.
Yeah, but first, here is what's making headlines this morning. A frightening moment for a pilot of a small plane after it crashes into the waters off of Florida. Plus, gas prices keep climbing again in parts of the country. Many Americans are feeling the squeeze. We'll take a look at where things stand this morning.
Very important stuff here, but we do begin here out west, where a fast-growing brush fire is forcing people from their homes and prompting Nevada's governor to declare a state of emergency right now. And Morgan Norwood is here on the story with the latest. Morgan, good morning.
Hey, good morning to you, Gio. This fire literally exploded overnight, growing from just 40 acres yesterday afternoon to more than 10,000 acres right now. We're talking fierce winds driving these flames toward neighborhoods, forcing families from their home. And this morning, there is still zero containment.
This morning, a state of emergency as a dangerous new wind-driven fire tears across Nevada. Homes in danger, evacuations underway. The Hawk Fire breaking out in the hills above the Somerset community in northwest Reno just before noon Saturday. It was a 40-acre brush fire at midday, but this morning, the fire burning more than 10,000 acres with no containment.
There are some structures involved. It's a traffic jam, and people are in their vehicles, and it's not looking good.
About 1,000 homes in the fire's path, some already burned.
The wind-driven fires move very rapidly into our residential areas, creating a lot of challenges for our firefighters to save homes and protect lives.
Evacuation orders rapidly underway. Whole neighborhoods on both sides of the US 395 told to leave for their own safety. Wind gusts hitting up to 40 miles per hour, spreading the blaze. Firefighters battling the flames from the ground and by air. Planes dropping retardant, while helicopters fly in buckets of water. More than 10,000 customers are without power this morning.
And such an intense firefight, and that continues this morning. More evacuations could come today, but the big concern now, more heat and dry conditions that could keep feeding these fires, guys.
Yeah, truly unbelievable pictures
really
there.
And zero containment.
Zero containment.
That's not what we want to hear this morning. Thank you so much, Morgan.
A lot to watch there. All right, Morgan, and with storms in the forecast, there is a risk of more fires sparking up in the very dry west. So let's turn over to Somara Theodore for more on that. Hey, Samara.
Hey, good morning. That's correct. Take a look right now at this map. This is showing us where we have the latest drought. Reno riding that fine line of a moderate drought, but it's actually worsening. And the wider picture shows exceptional and extreme droughts for places like Oregon all the way down to the Texas Panhandle. They really suffered as far as not receiving a lot when it came to the snow in the winter or the rain in the spring and summer. Things were lackluster on the moisture front. And it's also really dry out there. Temperatures in the 90s and triple digits out west. While we do have some storms approaching bringing rain, that also comes with the concern for lightning, which could spark more wildfires. That's a look at the forecast. Rhiannon, back to you.
All right, Somara, thank you. Now to President Trump's trade war with Canada, the USA's closest ally and once the biggest and most important U.S. trading partner. Trade talks collapsing and Trump's new 50% tariffs are now in effect. ABC's Stephen Portnoy is in Washington with the latest on this. Good morning, Stephen.
Good morning, Rhiannon. From Labatt Blue beer and Crown Royal whiskey to hockey sticks and fishing poles, plenty of Canadian products that Americans buy are about to get much more expensive as this new North American trade war heats up.
This morning, tensions between neighbors are at a new modern high as President Trump imposes 50% tariffs on a variety of Canadian imports. The talks collapsing late Friday, the Canadians walking out of negotiations with the U.S.
We cannot accept what they've offered, and we will not give what they've asked.
The Trump administration pointing to bans on the sale of U.S. alcohol in Canada, along with protections for Canadian dairy farmers.
We're moving forward with measures that respond to Canadian retaliation.
North of the border, leaders are rallying around the maple leaf and blasting President Trump.
He can't be trusted. Simple as that. He changes the deal. He keeps moving the goalpost.
The new U.S. tariffs will touch on just 5% of the Canadian goods that come south, but the list of affected products ranges from Canadian beer and whiskey to hockey sticks, furniture, textiles, and building supplies like cement. American importers will now have to pay a 50% levy to bring those items across the border, and their added costs are likely to be passed on to consumers. President Trump has said tariff is one of his favorite words, and earlier this month he said this about America's northern neighbors.
Canada's nasty. They are. They're nasty. People think Canada, they're nasty. I love the people, but they're nasty. Nasty leadership.
Canada's Prime Minister now vowing to fight back.
Canada will match Washington's new tariffs dollar for dollar in order to protect Canadian workers, farmers, families, and businesses.
Section 338 of the Smoot-Hawley Act, passed at the height of the Great Depression, allows the president to impose tariffs on imports from any country that he finds has discriminated against American commerce. Now, that authority's been on the books since 1930, but it's never been used before like this. Gio?
All right, Stephen Portnoy, thank you so much. We turn now to the war on Iran as Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent promises to unveil what he describes as the toughest sanctions in history against Iran. ABC's Olivia Rubin is here now with details on this. Olivia, good morning.
Gio, good morning. The Trump administration eyeing an apparent strategy shift here. President Trump threatening economic D-Day against Iran, though he hasn't given many details, as Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent says the U.S. will impose the toughest sanctions in history. A move he says, when combined with the naval blockade, will be enough to collapse the regime. And they're calling on every country to join in here, warning those who aid Iran will also face economic consequences. But Iran firing back, declaring they've won the war and threatening to retaliate against any economic warfare by cracking down even further on the Strait of Hormuz to make sure, quote, not a drop of oil gets out. And overseas, Trump saying he considers that critical waterway an American territory, though traffic there is at a virtual standstill, keeping gas prices here at home surging above $4 a gallon. And amid all this heightened rhetoric, Egypt saying it's trying to bring the two sides back to the negotiating table, but it's not clear what the path forward is, as Secretary Bessent says he's going to lay out this new economic plan tomorrow. Gio.
A lot to watch there, Olivia. Thanks so much. Let's go ahead and bring in ABC News Chief Washington correspondent John Carl, who's going to be hosting This Week later here on ABC. John, it is good to see you here, but what are the risks for President Trump with this trade war with Canada?
Well, one of the big ones is inflation, Gio. You get involved in a trade war, as you know, ultimately the costs of those increased tariffs on both sides are paid by consumers. And I'll tell you this, in the political context, some of the biggest trading partners with Canada in the United States are those border states, Michigan, Wisconsin. Those are states with key midterm elections this year, and voters are already concerned about inflation, about the state of the economy. This adds another level of uncertainty and something that could potentially significantly raise prices.
John, later today here on This Week, you have an interview with Texas Governor Greg Abbott. How nervous are Texas Republicans about the midterm elections, now just over 2 months away?
Well, Gio, as you know, Texas is one of the most Republican states in the country. It's been reliably Republican for many years, for decades, in fact. But this year, Republicans are worried about the trends. Greg Abbott, I've been looking at the polling before I went down to meet with him. He is clearly the most popular Republican elected official in the state of Texas, and his approval rating is below 50%. Texas has a very competitive Senate race this year, of course, and Abbott himself, one recent poll showed him leading by just within the margin of error, essentially statistically tied. So yes, Texas Republicans are worried. There's anxiety there about data centers, concerns about data centers, concerns about the Iran war, and concerns about inflation.
All right, it'll be very interesting to see what happens there in just 2 months. John, thank you so much. And tune into This Week Later right here on ABC for more on John's exclusive interview with Texas Governor Greg Abbott, just over 10 weeks now before the high-stakes midterms elections. Rhiannon?
Gio, we turn now to reaction overnight as Texas teen Karmelo Anthony is denied a new trial weeks after he was sentenced to 35 years in prison for stabbing and killing another teen at a track meet. Liz Nagy from our station KABC has the latest. Hey, good morning, Liz.
Good morning, Rhiannon. We are now just starting to hear from people on both sides of this case. This morning, attorneys for the 19-year-old convicted murderer say they are not giving up their push for a retrial despite this judge's decision.
Overnight, a Texas judge denied a teenager's request for a new trial in a high-profile murder case that's divided this small community. 19-year-old Karmelo Anthony was convicted of stabbing and killing a rival student athlete at a track meet last year and sentenced to 35 years in prison.
Get out of the roadway, you're going to jail!
Protests erupted in June after Anthony was found guilty of murdering 17-year-old Austin Metcalf at a high school track meet. The teen got into a fight with Metcalf after he entered the opposing team's tent during the meet. Metcalf died in his twin brother's arms.
He started getting aggressive and talking reckless, and my brother stepped in and said, "You need to move." And he's like, "Make me move."
During the trial, the defense made a so-called gentleman's agreement with prosecutors to only focus on what happened underneath that tent at the track meet. At the heart of the new motion for a retrial, the prosecution argued allegations including that the victim and his brother engaged in racist and violent behavior and that Anthony sent his girlfriend threatening texts were excluded from the jury. But some of that evidence surfaced just this week.
I don't think it's stunning to anybody who's watched any part of this trial that the truth is a lot more complicated than we originally thought.
Someone's child is in the grave and another person's child is facing 35 years. There are no winners.
Now, the new defense team said they disagree with this ruling and the denial does not end their case. The defense is now waiting for a decision from the Texas Fifth Court of Appeals. Rhiannon?
All right, Liz, thank you for the update on that. We turn now to those frightening moments on an American Airlines flight as a laptop burst into flames just minutes before the plane landed. Several passengers were burned. ABC's Jacqueline Lee joins us now with this harrowing story. Good morning, Jacqueline. How scary?
Rhiannon, good morning. I spoke with one passenger who said she ran to the back of the plane once she saw the laptop on fire, with flight attendants repeatedly yelling code red. This morning, terrifying moments on board an American Airlines flight after a passenger's laptop caught on fire midair.
I think we have about 4 to 5 passengers that were burned by the laptop.
Firefighters and first responders coming on board as soon as the plane touched down in Dallas Friday evening.
It was absolutely terrifying.
Passenger Jessica Ergens was on board American Airlines Flight 2398 flying from Atlanta to Dallas when she says she saw flames 2 rows in front of her.
I just saw the smoke first and then it all happened really fast and he was trying to get it away from him into the aisle.
The FAA confirming flight attendants contained the fire in a thermal containment bag. Ergens said multiple passengers tried to help put out the fire.
There were 2 individuals that had their hands in bags of ice and they were, shaking. They were visibly, just very shocked probably.
American Airlines saying 1 person was treated on scene and released. Just last month, a packed Swiss Air flight from Zurich to JFK was forced to divert and make an emergency landing in Maine after a headphone charging case got jammed in a seat, overheating and started smoking. The FAA reports so far this year, there have been at least 58 lithium battery incidents reported on flights that involved smoke, fire, or overheating. That passenger telling me that burning smell still sticks with her. The FAA is investigating.
Gio.
All right, very scary scenes there. Jacqueline, thank you for your reporting there. Now to the back-to-school season, which eventually coincides with cold and flu season and the vaccinations that could keep your kids healthy during the year. Joining us now is ABC News medical correspondent Dr. Darian Sutton to bring us up to date on all of this. Yes. All right, Dr. D, so tell us, because fewer and fewer kindergartners, they're actually getting these vaccines. They are recommended by the CDC, though. So what does this mean for public health?
That's absolutely right. The number of vaccination rates among children in kindergarten and in school this year and in the past 3 years has declined. If you compare, for example, the pre-pandemic period from 2018 to 2019, where we hovered just around 95%, we've dropped down just below 93%. That might not seem like a lot, but that equates to more than 280,000 children in kindergarten that are not up to date on their vaccination. Now, these numbers are not spread out generally across the United States. There are pocket communities that are very high risk, and that's what's driving the transmission. And as that number comes down, we see preventable diseases increase. The most contagious you would expect first. That's why we're seeing measles. Right now, we have the highest number than we've had since 1991, just over 2,700 cases. But it's not just measles. There are other preventable diseases like whooping cough, which has a high risk of hospitalizing young infants. So I think what's important for parents to understand is, number one, check your child's routine vaccine schedule. Make sure that they're up to date. If they aren't, talk to their pediatrician. And remember, exposure is almost inevitable to these types of things. Your question is, do you want to be exposed with immune protection or without? And that's what we use data for.
Okay, that's a very good point there. Okay, so let's talk about some of these other things that maybe we should be concerned about, specifically maybe COVID as we're heading back. We know rates are way down, but as kids head back to the classroom, they pick up every germ possible.
And classrooms are great places for that, right? You know, you have 30 or so kids in a classroom. That creates an environment where diseases can easily transfer from child to child. So COVID rates are down. We're still seeing positive tests. We were just talking during the break about how sometimes patients will come back with a positive test. It even surprises me for some reason because in certain cases I'll see complications and in certain cases I won't. But what is important to understand is that there are guidelines out there. If you check the American Academy of Pediatrics, they've produced guidelines to help prioritize those who are highest at risk. They recommend for children under the age of 2 to get their vaccination, and for children, teens, and adolescents who have a high risk, for example, an immune-compromising condition or asthma, or have a relative that has a high risk, to get their COVID-19 vaccine. All others, the risk of hospitalization is substantially low, but COVID vaccines still reduce your risk of an emergency room visit and an urgent care visit by more than 50%. Oh, wow. So in terms of saving time, illness, and money, it's really understandable to choose vaccines to provide that protection.
All right, Dr. Darian. Back to school time.
Back to school time.
Thank you so much for that.
Thank you.
We turn now to gas prices, pushing towards a record high for the month of August. Americans have already been tightening their wallets as they face higher prices at the grocery store. ABC's Andrew Dimbert is here with more on this. Good morning, Andrew.
Hey, good morning, Rhiannon. Gas prices are climbing again, and drivers are feeling the pain again. The national average is now about $4.08 a gallon, up 93 cents, nearly a dollar from this time last year. AAA says that price marks the highest national average ever recorded on this date, with August now shaping up to be the most expensive month on record to fill up. Just check out what a gallon of gas costs you in these states. California, Hawaii, and Washington all firmly above $5 a gallon. Alaska, $4.82, Nevada, $4.78. And the big driver, of course, is oil. Crude is climbing, trading at almost $87 a barrel as the war with Iran and the Strait of Hormuz closure continues to put pressure on global energy supplies. Meanwhile, President Trump maintains gas prices will come down when the conflict ends. The administration says it's trying to contain costs by relaxing Clean Air Act regulations for gasoline. The EPA says that will increase the supply of gasoline, and it hopes help ease prices at the pump. Gio.
It's such a back and forth with these gas prices up and down. All right, Andrew, thank you so much. Now to those images that you love so much there in the nation's capital, the big race today, the 250-mile Grand Prix in Washington. ABC's Alex Prochet joins us now live from the pit lane. Alex, good morning.
Good morning, Gio. Yes, welcome to pit lane for the Freedom 250 Grand Prix. We've got teams making final preps here as these drivers get ready to start their engines later today. We've seen the street sweepers coming through and making sure that the track is clear of debris. This is a first of its kind race around the National Mall when they're going to be passing by some of DC's most prominent tourist attractions. They're going to be going by the National Archives, also the Smithsonian Air and Space Museum, and then right down Pennsylvania Avenue there with the U.S. Capitol in the background. These cars can reach speeds up to 240 miles an hour. And at 250 miles long, this is the second longest street circuit race in IndyCar history. And if we look at the field of 25, the starting grid begins with Alex Palau of Spain, followed by American Kyle Kirkwood, New Zealand's Scott McLaughlin, and then Christian Rasmussen of Denmark. And yesterday, we got an up-close look at some of these cars as they finish qualifying laps. And this is the latest in a series of events meant to celebrate America's 250th birthday. That includes that record-breaking fireworks show and also a UFC event at the White House. But if you are in the D.C. area, prepare for road closures today, not just for cars, but also cyclists and pedestrians. It's going to be a busy one, guys.
Yeah, it sure will. All those people lining the streets and those incredible images. Awesome. All right, Alex, thank you so much. Okay, still ahead here. Closing arguments ahead this week in Lindsay Clancy's trial. Our legal contributor is going to weigh in on the case.
Plus, did you know today is National Cheap Flight Day, but is it really the day to book your travel? What you need to know about when to start shopping for holiday travel.
Oh, all right. And details on Serena Williams and her return to the U.S. Open this week. Stick around. You're watching GMA on this Sunday morning.
Hostage University. Anybody getting off?
Well, everyone, I don't mean to get emotional, but everything in my life has led to this moment. Let it not be just the beginning of my dream, but the beginning of all of our dreams. Gladys, promise me you'll keep auditioning.
Oh, what a classic there. Welcome back to GMA. It is back to school season, and students are making their return to campus. And for some parents of college students, this means an empty nest awaits at home. Yes, but there's a new trend.
Okay.
You're gonna love this, where kids are helping moms and dads cope with empty nest parties.
All right.
Yeah, well, Gans is gonna have all the details on that later this hour.
You're not there yet?
No,
but, oh
not
my
even
gosh,
close.
I know. When that happens to you, oh boy. All right. Let's take a look at some of the other big stories that we're following here on this Sunday morning. In Indiana, nearly 30,000 customers are still without power more than a week after deadly storms hit the state. Utility crews are stepping up efforts to get homes and businesses back on the grid. Governor Mike Braun is asking the federal government for a major disaster declaration to unlock additional aid for storm-ravaged counties.
And a 5.9 magnitude earthquake hit eastern Japan. Officials say at least 37 people suffered minor injuries when the tremor jolted the area. And also the Tokyo area as well felt it. Disaster response teams are assessing the extent of any damages.
Authorities investigating a small plane crash in the waters off Florida. The FAA says that the plane went down on Saturday morning about 2 miles east of Boca Raton Airport on a flight from Fort Myers to the Bahamas. The only person on board, the pilot, was rescued.
Ooh. And Serena Williams will make a big return to the U.S. Open this week. The U.S. Tennis Association has given Williams and Carlos Alcaraz a wild card to play mixed double. That is going to be fun to watch. This will be Williams' first competition at the U.S. Open since 2022. Gio.
That will be one to watch. All right, Rhiannon, we're going to start this half hour here with closing arguments set to begin this week in the trial of Lindsay Clancy. The Massachusetts mother is on trial for the deaths of her 3 young children. Clancy's attorneys do not dispute that she took their lives and then jumped out the window in an apparent attempt to take her own life, leaving her paralyzed from the waist down. But the defense is claiming insanity, arguing that she had postpartum psychosis. That's a rare but very serious medical emergency that can come on rapidly after childbirth, and was overprescribed more than a dozen medications they claim worsened that mental health condition. Among the defense witnesses, a psychologist who said that he spent more than 35 hours with Clancy over dozens of visits after their deaths. Listen in.
She had said that she heard a male voice ordering her, telling her that she didn't have any choice.
And the prosecution argued that Clancy killed the children because she was unhappy with her life.
Evidence will show that this defendant had a means and access to mental health that most people don't. And she chose to deal with her mental health issues in the worst way.
And joining us now with more on the case that's sparking a big debate is ABC News legal contributor Bernarda Villalona. Bernarda, welcome. Thank you for joining us here on GMA. It's good to see you.
Thank you for having me. Good morning.
Absolutely. So let's talk about these arguments presented, because we know that Lindsay Clancy is charged with 3 counts of first-degree murder. What's your take on the strength of the case?
So, Gio, it's all going to boil down to battle of the experts, because as stated earlier, Lindsay Clancy's defense team is not disputing that she actually took the life away of the 3 kids. What they're arguing is that she didn't have the criminal responsibility, the ability to acknowledge what she was doing was wrong, that because of her psychosis, that there was auditory hallucinations and she couldn't control. She was almost like a puppet being told what to do and couldn't control her actions. So in terms of the pros and cons, the prosecution has timing on their side, because when her husband had left the house to go to the CVS and to pick up the food, there was about 54 minutes where Lindsay was inside of that home. And the pros for the prosecution is all that timing in terms of each child that she strangled with that rope. It took time for her to have been able to, like, she didn't stop and say, what's going on? Or where am I? Or should I stop? And in addition to that, there was a phone call. The husband called Lindsay, and it seems that the timing of that phone call seemed to be shortly after she killed those 3 kids. And the husband didn't find anything wrong with that conversation. So that's what the prosecution has on their side. But in terms of the defense has strong evidence on their side, because there's a documented history of her trying to get mental health services. She went to the emergency room, she went to the hospital, she went to different therapists, she went to different doctors. In fact, her husband's own mother tried to help her out. So all of that does play in the role for the defense. In addition to that is that she has the forgiveness of her husband, of her mother-in-law, of her own mother, her own sister, and whole family, which goes a long way.
This trial is gripping the country, and we know Lindsay Clancy is not going to testify. What do you make of that decision by the defense not to put her on the stand?
It was an excellent decision by the defense not to call her to testify, because Lindsay Clancy's story is already before the jury. The jury already knows all the help that she tried to get. The jury knows all the medication that she was on. The jury knows that she is a loving mother, and at no point did she ever harm her kids. And also, when you're talking about the defendant testifying, it changes jury deliberations, because it's no longer whether the prosecution proved their case beyond a reasonable doubt, but it's rather, well, Lindsay was on the stand, and I don't like how she said this, so I don't believe when she made this comment. So it changes the jury deliberation. But also importantly, remember that even though Lindsay Clancy is saying that she's not guilty because she lacked a criminal responsibility, the prosecutor has to prove beyond a reasonable doubt that she did have the criminal responsibility, that she did understand what she was going through. So the burden's on the prosecution and not on the defense.
You know, you spend a few minutes online and you see that Lindsay Clancy actually has a bunch of supporters. Yeah. Is the justice system keeping up with this conversation that's happening around mental health?
I don't think the justice system is keeping up with what's going on with mental health. It's not keeping up with mental health, nor is it keeping up with technology. But watching this case, and this is why she has so many followers, is that people can relate to these problems. People can relate to the health system failing them in the sense of being able to diagnose them and to actually treat them. So I think that's why she's getting so much of a huge following, because it's bringing awareness to this issue.
All right, we'll see what happens with this. Bernarda, thank you so much for joining us and breaking it all down. There's a look at the New York City skyline, and the work could be that maybe this is the perfect time to book your next vacation. ABC's Irina Roy, though, has been looking into it, so let's find out. Good morning, Rena.
Hey, good morning, guys. Yeah, today is supposedly National Cheap Flight Day, the day some travel experts claim airfares start to drop after the summer rush. But the real story, don't get too hung up on one day. The Points Guy's Brian Kelly says we are entering a sweet spot that could last through mid-September as summer travel winds down. If you're planning Thanksgiving, Christmas, or an international trip this fall, now is the time to start shopping.
As the summer comes to an end and before we get into holidays, there generally is a retreat in the price of airfare. So over the next couple of weeks, I highly encourage people to start booking that holiday travel, especially if you're traveling internationally. I recommend setting alerts and being opportunistic. When you see fares drop or if it says low, you should probably book.
And to get even more bang for your buck, Kelly recommends hotel and air bundle packs. Plus, flying midweek rather than the weekend can save you up to 40%. And if you're using frequent flyer miles, booking last minute may actually be helpful. With airlines trying to fill every last seat, you're often able to redeem your points at the lowest amounts within a week of departure. But bottom line, cheap flight day may be more marketing than magic. But if you haven't booked holiday travel yet, the next few weeks could be your best chance to lock in a deal,
More
guys.
marketing than magic.
That's right. But you know, I love that Google Flights or Kayak, they have the free alerts so that you can watch
the
those
tracking,
prices.
that's key.
That's key.
Do you bundle your hotel and air?
I don't.
I've never done it
I always
before.
look for
that was a
individual
good tip
deals.
from him.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm going to
All
try
right,
that.
that's good. All right, thank you. All right, coming up here on Good Morning America, the rise of empty nest parties, what they are, and who's throwing them. Stick around, you're watching GMA Sunday. All right, we're back now on GMA with the college-bound kids showing their love and appreciation to their empty nest parents. ABC's Will Gans is here with a twist on a going-away party.
That's exactly right. Moving your kid into college is stressful, right? New furniture and bedding, that road trip when the car is packed to the gills, the anxiety about starting a fresh chapter. But before we get to that point, some students are taking a moment to celebrate the 18 years of support that got them here in the first place.
Typically, college drop-off looks something like this scene from Modern Family.
We're family. I'll try to make you proud. You already have.
Let me in here! But a new trend has kids flipping the script and celebrating their parents with empty nest parties.
She celebrates a lot of milestones for us, and I wanted to be able to give her some of that back.
Avery Engelman teaming up with her siblings to celebrate their mom on the eve of her becoming an empty nester.
It was wonderful. I was so surprised and at the same time so grateful. I had 3 letters from each one of my kids. I think it's one of the best gifts I've ever had.
Some college-bound kiddos decorating with childhood photos, signs, and nostalgic decor, often incorporating their parents' favorite treats and thank you notes into their own empty nest parties, which have now racked up millions of views on TikTok. Lauren Nelson secretly set up her parents' party in the basement, telling mom and dad there was a leak to get them both to go down there.
First, we were just thrilled that there was no water leak in the basement and touched. A lot of details went into it. It was just so thoughtfully put together.
Seeing you guys able to celebrate together after all the hard work you guys have put in just made me so emotional.
Lauren's now at the University of Georgia, but the send-off is still keeping the Kaler family spirits bright, even if the house is a little quieter these days.
For Lauren to be mature enough and wise enough to kind of reflect and do something like this, it just sums up Lauren.
So one other fun trend to point out, if maybe you missed the empty nest party window of opportunity here, college kids try to send a don't ghost your parents care package. You fill a box with pickleball swag or mahjong tiles, treats, and all the things that might make empty nesting easier on your parents. And of course, a letter thanking them for getting you this far to begin with.
Oh, that is sweet. I think Rhiannon's going to keep a copy of the story and show it to her kids every year to just get it in their heads, right?
Absolutely, because that's all we want is a little bit of attention, but a full-blown party, what a fantastic
It's
way to
such a nice
celebrate.
idea.
I like the parents saying, we were just glad there's no leak in the basement.
Right, yeah.
Thank you, Will. That was great. Now with our play of the day in the world, humanoid robot games, Will Gans got tired of sitting by Geo and switched over.
I moved to the fun side of the couch.
Yep,
that's right. All right, get this, you guys. More than 650 teams from across 16 countries are gathered in China right now for the World Humanoid Robot Games. And some records are already being set. It's taken 17 years for anyone or anything to break Usain Bolt's 100-meter dash record until right now. You saw it just there. That robot ran the distance in 9.39 seconds at the World Humanoid Robot Games yesterday.
It doesn't look so good.
No, I will say it's probably fair to say at the end of Usain's race, it was slightly less dramatic. He didn't have to be carried off on a stretcher. This robot did, though. And then check out these boxing robots.
Oh, wow.
The two of them duking it out. One of them even doing a victory dance at the end after he was declared the winner. Look at him there.
It's a little too Terminator for me.
I know. And then check that out. That guy crashed, sprinting, taking out part of the light-up courtside display on the way down. Yeah, and then in classic cartoon fashion, this might be my favorite of the weekend. This guy running like Phoebe Buffay from Friends, stopping before he hits the blue wall, and then the fall in slow motion. There he goes, there he goes. It's like the end of a night out. Boom!
That's me after a sprint.
That's
that
right.
Was great, Will. Thank you so much, and thank you for watching.
Yes, more coverage at ABC News Live.
Bye, everybody. Have a good day.